there was no intention for me to get into computer science because I come from no background. I'm a dropout, and I was a sales guy then,
Okay.
and sales was my forte. So what I used to help people fix their phones,
Oh,
like
nice.
make it faster.
Yeah.
By how? And I used to install some apps, clear some cache, and play around with the app size, data, and a lot of stuff.
Hi, my name is Amit Vyas. I'm the CEO of Mulya Ed. Mulya Ed is a software testing training company. We help freshers learn software testing and help them get their first job. We also help a lot of companies train their existing testers and upskill. This is a quick thing about me. This piece of content is an audio video content that we are creating to help the entire space of software testing. We don't have an agenda to it as of today, but we want to create stories. We want to find out thought leaders in the space of software testing, find out about their stories, what were their learning journeys, and then bring it out to everybody in the world. With that, welcome everybody. We are calling it the Test Talk Show. So with that, we'll start with our first guest today. His name is Abhilash Hari. He is the head of solutions at Mulya, and his day in day out speaks to different customers, understanding their problem statements and how to solve them. So without further ado, let me introduce all of you to Mr. Abhilash Hari.
Hey guys, thanks for having me here, and it's a great pleasure to talk to a lot more people through this structure of having to enable content to folks in Mulya Ed or who are going to come into Mulya Ed. And I think this is a great initiative. First of all,
Thank
the fact
you.
that we are gonna reach more and more in the space of software testing, and we are not just talking about computer science students or any of that sort.
Correct.
Right? This is going to be a wider audience, and I also come from a different background. We'll talk about it, but this has just been great, and I've been following Mulya Ed for quite some time, and the kind of testers that we work with also come from Mulya Ed. It's been absolute pleasure, and I look forward to also doing or listening to most such stories, and thanks for having me, and this is going to be exciting.
Great. Yes, it is going to be exciting. I'm really excited for it. My team is really excited for it. Abhi, I've known you for a couple years now. I've worked with you a lot. I know a lot of parts of your story, but today I want to bring them out. Some parts of it, not everything. Some parts of it, I want to bring them out and
Yeah.
present it to the world. We'll try this and we'll see where it goes. And I would like to have a very frank, open conversation with you.
Absolutely. I think that's what will bring out a lot of stories.
Yes.
And in fact, sometimes we get into too technical details of
Correct.
how things are going to look like. But I think every tester that I have worked in with Mulya in the past, right? They are unique.
Yeah,
And,
100%.
And I also believe that this uniqueness is what will drive a lot more visibility of and the freedom of expression.
True.
right?
True.
And
True.
yeah, I think that's what it is, and happy to share. I mean, apart from what anything apart from what we want to discuss.
Yeah, 100%. So to begin with, I'll just give a quick intro where Abhi actually started working with Mulya very early in Mulya's cycle.
Yeah.
I think when Mulya started around 2010-11, and he came in very early.
Yeah.
But I'll not give out any information from it right now. I'll let you talk about it.
Yeah.
So the first question to you is, Abhi, how did you start in the space of software testing? Was it intentional or was it accidental?
Well, I would say it's purely accidental, and there was no intention for me to get into computer science because I come from no background. I'm a dropout. I started working in the age of 12 probably,
Oh,
and I was a sales guy then,
okay.
and sales was my forte. But I was always interested in mobile technologies because that's when Google launched its first Android, Apple launched its first iPhone, and I was always excited about how things are going to shape up. And that's when speak to lot of people who got their hands on of the first Android phone, and I have to be honest that the phones then was really bad. And
Golden days.
Yeah, the old Samsung phones trying to, I mean, it was utterly bad, right? And so what I used to help people fix their phones,
Oh,
like
nice.
make it faster.
Ah.
By how? And I used to install some apps, clear some cache and play around with the app size, data, and a lot of stuff. So this got me interested in knowing how things work internally, right? And that's the fundamental of how I accidentally was moving towards software testing. I didn't know that
Yeah.
this was software
Yeah.
testing, and I had to move a little bit, right? The fact that so the way it started is Mulya was in garage initial days, and they moved from garage to a new office, and Pradeep called me and said, why don't you come and work with us?
Ah.
And that's how accidentally it was. He said, we will try working with you for a couple of months. And that's how my journey started.
Nice.
Towards software testing. I didn't know there was no background of computer science, engineering, of any of that sort. So I came out directly from second PU or 12th standard, what they call it. So I didn't complete my 12th standard.
Oh, nice.
So I just quickly jumped into
Very nice.
the industry
Very
side
nice.
of it. Yeah. So that's how it started. But yeah, I mean, it was again. I would say that everybody, regardless of software testing of any of that side specifics, right? We should start trying out in that time, which is during your college days and during the time you are sort of figuring out what you want to learn, right? It could be. I think I see a lot of students from Mulya who are from different backgrounds.
So I'm also seeing a lot of college students these days are really
Yeah.
enthusiastic, while they are studying, but they start trying out their hands in different
Correct.
areas,
Correct.
and that's really good because those formative years they help them a lot once they start getting into a corporate space.
True. I think the fact that now you have a lot more opportunity to explore, because then we didn't have the right guidance,
True.
and now, like say Mulya Ed, right, and a lot of edtech companies and spaces, even some companies like Masai, for example, are bringing in folks from diverse background. And like I mentioned, I work with Mulya Ed folks who are from civil engineering background.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they have no idea of how
Correct,
basic computer
correct,
science works,
correct.
and they've been doing fantastic, right? But yeah, I think the timing of it and the ability to find out and reach there, I think that's what we are trying to do here as well, right?
Correct.
So to reach more people about how you can get into at an earliest stage of your career. And I mean, when I say career, it starts from your let's say college days,
Yeah.
right? And that's the time we have to sort of enable this for a lot of people.
Got it. So, see, I think you spoke about purely accidental. Now, there's accidental, but purely accidental was completely different. I think most software testers are accidental, not
Yeah.
purely accidental,
Yeah.
but accidental. And I was an accidental software tester as well. And that's, as you said, people coming from civil mechanical background, they're as good as anybody coming from a BCom background, right?
True.
And that's why at Mulya we've sort of not had an educational background as a limitation.
Correct.
So anybody coming from whatever background, they can apply for it and start learning,
Yeah.
which is, I believe, and as you spoke about that, I think this is for the first time in the human civilization that we are in a time where all information is already available online.
Correct.
Available free of cost as well.
Correct.
But the problem is so much information is available now that it is very difficult to find the right one.
Correct.
And to find the right structure to it.
Correct.
And I think that is one space where these tech companies like Mulya and Masai and others that you spoke of come in and do a decent job or
Correct.
try to do a good job. So that's about this. I will move on to the next step where so now okay, you have joined Mulya and Pradeep said that he will try to work with
Yeah.
you. So what happens next? How does your learning journey begin
Yeah.
for software testing?
Yeah, so I think I have to be very grateful and thankful for the kind of opportunities that I've got in Mulya and the trust that they have put in, let's say, a person who does not come from a typical background of testing, who understands testing or any of that sort, right?
Correct. Yeah.
I think that's a philosophy, right? Even behind Mulya and Mulya Ed, the fact that we are able to trust people and enable them with opportunities,
Yeah.
and that's something that I've been very fortunate to get. And the way it started was, actually to sit and start exploring products. And when that happened, and the colleagues of mine who are working with us, they've been extremely passionate about testing. I think that's the first essence of
Correct.
of wherever you get started. That passion, if you have some sense of understanding what it is that they are doing, then it actually makes a vast difference,
Yeah.
right? And I also work with people like Parimala
Yeah.
and Dhanashekhar, a lot of other folks in the industry who have been like the initial days of software testing in India, and they've been a great mentors,
Yeah.
right, throughout.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized that when you go into testing, first, the fact that you get the right guidance, and you also get the right people to help you with.
Correct. And I think one point there is, while the mentors are really, really important, the team around, which might not be a direct mentor, but
Correct.
the tacit learning that happens to them is
Absolutely.
of boundless and priceless.
Correct. I think the kind of the kind of testing that I didn't know how to report bugs.
Correct. Yeah.
I was not great at English even then.
Ah.
So the fact that I make a lot of mistakes,
Ah.
and someone needs to first help us get through that journey of
Correct.
making those mistakes.
Correct.
And I think that is one of the important learning, and that's what we are also doing, right?
Correct.
We let people do a lot of mistakes,
Correct.
and you don't, let's say, sort of punish them for that.
Correct.
Rather encourage them to understand this isn't a mistake, and this is everybody does. It's a rookie mistake that everybody does.
Yeah.
And it's all to learn, right?
True.
And the idea of testing, initiating the testing. So nobody told when I was testing that I'm testing,
Correct.
right? And it was purely a natural way of the flow of things that were happening. And since I was very clear about mobile app technologies and things like that, I started going very deep into it.
Okay.
And that's when I became really good at what it means to test something,
Okay.
and what it means to communicate something is wrong,
Yeah.
right? And that's the basics of software testing, right?
Correct.
And understanding what the product does, and understanding and communicating to the stakeholders of how things are potentially going to fail.
Correct.
And that's where it started.
Okay. I think in order to test something, you need to know how to build it.
Correct.
So if you know how it got built, then it is easier and possible for you to test it as well.
Okay.
So, and I think when you spoke about the people around you, also the one thing that has sort of stuck with me, that Mulya has always added rebel.
Correct.
Has been as an organization has been a rebel in the entire testing industry.
Absolutely.
But the kind of people who joined also, they were also rebellious in
Yeah.
nature, and that's what led
That's
to
a very positive influence.
100%, yes.
In the company.
yes.
And I used to be extremely fearful
Ah.
as a nature.
Yeah.
I was a fearful person.
Yeah. And you were very
because-
young as well.
Yeah, I was very young when I joined Mulya. Not to put it on, so I was legally can get into the job. So I was 18 years old then.
Yeah,
when I
child
started.
labor.
Yeah. So I was 18 years old. I joined 17 and a half.
Ah.
Right. And funny story, they had to sort of play around with me in Mulya, but the way that the people are there, and in fact the way we communicate with the customers also
Correct.
was not a typical way.
Correct.
Right. I mean, you have to be extremely courageous
Correct.
to tell your customer that
You are
this
wrong.
is not right.
Correct.
This is wrong. You're gonna fail. miserably.
Correct.
I think that is the basic foundation that Mulya has been built on, and I think Mulya Ed testers also come with a similar philosophy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the ability to say no to some things.
Yeah.
Ability to confront
Yeah.
things are going to go wrong.
Yeah.
The ability to understand the basic business and products.
Yeah. So, see, the one thing that differentiates Mulya Ed from other companies is that while testing, curriculum, training it, all could be the same. But the foundation is
Correct.
built on creating passion for software testing. So, our sort of agenda has been to create that love for software testing in students.
Correct.
If we are able to do that, learning will automatically happen. If somebody starts loving something,
Correct.
loves to cook,
Correct.
he'll cook himself, he'll learn
Correct.
himself.
Correct.
So while learning is an important space where giving them a right structured program, enabling them with everything, but I think that developing the love for testing, for the craft, that
Correct.
passion for the craft is the most important, which
Correct.
then helps to you to do other things.
Absolutely. I think the environment, number one. I think the people have also, you see people passionate enough
Yeah.
about the craft itself.
Yeah.
Right? Then it makes a vast difference.
Correct.
And the second part is there is a very high misconception in the market right now in terms of testing as a whole. So we have been I've been in the industry for about 12 years now, and I've had 11 years of experience in software testing. I don't see things slowing down
Yeah.
even today.
Yeah.
We speak to more customers than we have ever spoken in our Mulya journey. Right?
Correct.
The last 2 years, we've spoken to more than 300 odd customers.
Yeah.
And that's a big number. Right?
Correct.
And the fact that people are the testers and the ability to move towards this particular space, right, has actually speeded up.
Yeah. So one thing that I'm seeing hiring at Mulya is the kind of talent is constantly getting better.
Correct.
I think software testing as a profession did not have as much respect in the past, but today that's 100% changing. As you spoke about 300 plus companies, right? And similar to that, on the talent wise as well, they are more proud of doing what they are doing.
Absolutely.
And it's constantly increasing.
Absolutely. And I also think that as much as it's right now at par with every other
It is.
category, right?
Monetarily, any benefit wise, ESOP wise, it is at par.
Yeah, it's at par with developers. I have worked with plenty of startups. There is equal amount of, I would say, the work
Yeah.
and the complexity and
Yeah,
the
yeah.
challenges,
Correct.
the opportunities. It's absolutely equal.
Okay, it is a challenging job. It is not an easier job. So there was one orientation call that I was doing with new students in our program, and I wanted to tell them that don't get into software testing thinking that it's an easier thing to do.
Correct.
Yeah, I could not do dev and it's an easier thing to do. It's not like that.
Correct.
It's actually difficult in a few terms. See, you have to understand from point 1 to point Z, A to Z, and that puts you in a different path altogether. That
Right.
kind of learning, constant learning, every day is a new thing. And I'll come to that part as well, where the many career options that it opens.
Correct.
But I'll come to that later. Well, for now, we'll just continue to hear your story.
Yeah. So
Learnings.
learnings. The fact that I was in a space where it was thriving testing, and when I joined Mulya, I was the 17th employee or something. We were quite small in a small space, and we could talk and we could do a lot of things.
Nice.
And now we are at like 450 plus or 500 plus
Yeah.
probably. Like we've become extremely big, right? But I would say that one of the things that I constantly focused on is the ability to stay ahead of the time.
Okay.
And that was extremely important because in Mulya, anything about mobile and mobile testing. So I was the subject matter expert.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
Right? And the fact that every customer, every project that we pick up has has mobile as a concept, right?
Yeah.
Because everything was changing to mobile then.
Yeah.
Apps were getting built, games were getting built, everything was mobile. And I was a ready-made person.
Nice.
Right? And what made it happen is the ability to sort of think how things are going to change,
Yeah.
right? And the idea of mobile being there then, and the kind of tools that I picked up, the kind of concepts of testing that I mixed it up. We have something called Kopflangen, right?
Yeah.
So we were the initial stage of we had different names like without F, without L, without G. Then so we had to put together some mnemonic like that. but we were in the initial days of Koflangan. But that is still relevant as of today.
True. True.
And if we wouldn't have been, ahead of time, Koflangan would have failed.
Correct.
Right? And the fact that it's still relevant today and
Correct.
it's still working today is
Correct.
one of my biggest learning, is to be able to stay ahead of time.
Yeah. So one question there, Abhi. So because you came from an unstructured learning background, and when you got started, also it was a lot of trial and error.
True.
How long did it take for you in terms of number of months to be able to create that kind of knowledge?
Well, I think I would not put this as a number. I'm still learning today.
Okay.
And learning doesn't stop overall.
True. True.
But the concepts of testing and the readiness to understand how do you basically communicate testing and work with the customers to be able to solve their problems, right? And that took quite some time. I would say that it took about, let's say, 2 years for me to become extremely good at the concepts, right?
Yeah,
See,
yeah.
it's like this, right? For example, in factories, if you go, there are
Yeah.
folks doing extremely jobs very fast because they've been doing that, but they know the concept right.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The new things may take a little bit of time, but that's part and parcel of every concept of learning,
Correct. Correct.
right? And the 2 years was it's a deep learning, a deep thought process, and a deep understanding of technology, tools, and things like that. But if you ask me, let's say in a general sense right now, because of the vast amount of trainings available, materials available,
Yeah.
I am guessing it should not take more than, let's say, 5 months to understand the basic concepts,
Got it, yeah.
or 3 months, or
Yeah.
whatever that
Yeah.
timeline is.
Yeah.
Depends on the person, depends on the question, depends on the
Correct.
people, depends
Correct.
on the type of content they're coming from.
Correct. Correct.
So I would say that this is a very good timeline for someone to transition these days.
Correct. So see, one question outside of that learning is on the human side of it. As a young kid in such a place where so much work is happening, new learnings and all, but did you have questions? Did you have self doubt that, because today I see a lot of students, the biggest challenge for them to conquer is themselves.
Correct.
Their own doubt, self doubt, that
Correct.
whether can I do it or not.
Correct.
So as a young professional at that time, did you have such doubts?
Yeah, like I mentioned, I was a quite fearful person then.
Yeah.
I also had my doubts because I had more doubts than probably someone would have come out of engineering, right?
Yeah.
Because I always, so I'll give you a small story, right? It's when I completed 18, and Mulya gave me an offer letter. They called me inside a conference room, and where Pradeep and a couple of others were standing, and they handed over a letter to me, and they said it was nice working with you, and think we are not legally bound to work with you because you are just just reached 18, so technically not possible for us to continue with you, so you can go home. Okay? In my mind, I already started thinking about, I have to go back to college, I have to read it, to study again, get into this, right? And then it was basically offer letter, turned out to be offer letter. I didn't open it.
Surprise.
Yeah, I came out and started crying inside. But the fact that it was an offer letter, I was extremely happy about it.
Very nice.
And that was my first offer letter.
Very
and
nice.
that's what I'm continuing. But the idea is that I was extremely doubtful at some point of time because I don't come from a I don't have a degree, or I don't have education, and society demands that.
True.
Companies demands that.
True.
And I had to overcome a lot, and now it's much better.
It
to be
is.
honest.
It is.
But then it was extremely difficult
Correct.
for me to conquer this thought of whether are you at the right place,
Correct.
are you doing the right thing.
Correct.
But there was one particular concept that always overruled all of this, is my passion and love towards testing. Right, I always loved playing around with this, but that it's like meditation, right? So I started doing it, I forget everything else. And I think even now I speak to a lot of freshers. I work with a lot of freshers. They have this way, hey, can you get into automation?
Yeah.
Hey, I want to do, let's say, Python.
Correct.
Do data science and
Correct.
things like that,
Correct.
right? But I would say that that's the journey that you have to
Yeah,
head
yeah,
towards,
yeah.
and that's what will take you there. We'll talk about it, but it is always there.
Correct.
The only way to conquer is to become really good at what you're doing.
Correct. I think there the rebellious nature of Mulya also comes in picture.
Correct.
For them to go out and hire somebody
Correct.
who did not have a computer science BTech degree.
Correct.
While I'm sure 99% other companies were hiring in that
Correct,
space.
correct.
Today, at least, there are more companies that might be open to dropouts.
Correct.
But at that time, back in 2010-11, where the concept of dropouts was also not as famous, Zuckerberg had not started.
Yeah, there were only
not-
three people there. Steve Jobs, Zuckerberg, or someone else. So it was only 2 or 3 people. They know
Correct.
that these are the dropouts kind,
So
right?
yeah, so I think hats off to the leadership at that time,
Correct.
Pradeep as well, and the entire leadership at Mulya for such a courageous decision. Today we are able to build on top of those guys, whatever they had done at that time,
Correct.
whatever Pradeep did, and now that your life journey is also coming out so beautifully.
Yeah.
At that time, it would have been a big gamble.
Correct.
And people could have asked him again that what are you doing?
Correct.
This is a
Yeah,
serious business.
it's like a stock market. Okay,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
high risk, high reward.
Correct.
But I think you mentioned the right thing, right? The again I mentioned the foundation part of it.
Yeah.
They always had our backs,
Correct. That's the most important
and we could make a lot of mistakes.
part. Yeah.
I think the ability to say that it's okay.
True.
It's very frugal these days,
Correct.
and it's very demanding, the companies and kind of work. It's all very high demand.
Correct.
So it's all about the balance that you want to bring in.
Yeah. So the reason I spoke about that rebelliousness of Mulya at that time, because even today we are facing challenges in finding opportunities where somebody would have done BTech but 4 years ago.
Correct.
If you look at most of the fresher opportunities in the market, they are for people who passed out in 23, 22, 21
Correct.
or 20 worst case.
Correct.
Which is, so finding, even today there are not many opportunities. For somebody who would have passed out in 2018, has spent some time focusing on competitive exams, it didn't work out for him or her, now that person has done some learning. But for him to get into software space, there's a lot of education that's needed for companies as well, for them to understand the right talent. It's not, you can't just filter out people based on the years of pass out or what degree
Correct.
they have.
Correct.
It has to be bigger than that.
Correct.
See, I understand the problem with employers because I myself been hiring people at Mulya that
Yeah.
you have to filter out.
Correct.
See, in a country like India where you have so much talent available, identifying the talent that works for you is a daunting task. And I think most of these companies use these graduation years and everything, or 75% distinction in 12th, 10th and all, in order to filter out people.
Correct.
But I think in that filtration, they lose out on a lot of good talent.
Yeah, the smart folks are sitting somewhere. So
Yeah.
I think the best thing for new folks who want to enter into this space or get a job or find a job and things like that, you have to be extremely different, right?
True.
And when I say extremely different, is you receive hundreds of resumes.
Correct.
They all look similar.
Everything. 95% of the resume is
It's
same.
just a copy paste.
Correct.
People don't want to make effort
Correct.
to make those changes.
Correct.
And I'm saying the 5% are the rest of the 5% are really smart.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of other smart people who are stuck inside
Yeah.
in this loop of having to have this pressure of finding the right job or
Yeah,
finding
yeah.
the right company and just dropping the resume on the roads.
Correct. I think that's the traditional path that is
Correct.
created by somebody and now people are just following on it.
Correct.
There are less than 0.5% people who create video resumes.
Correct.
And video resumes have such a great impact.
Yeah,
Like-
I'll give you an example. One of the customers, we had
Ah.
to send out my resume
Ah.
for part of Mulya's
Ah.
customer, right? So I looked at everybody's resume that was
Ah.
going out with
Ah.
it.
Ah.
So then I actually created a mind map of my resume.
Okay.
And I shared it as a PDF. Initially, there was a lot of
Resistance.
resistance saying, "Hey, why are you sending this?"
Yeah.
I put my pictures, I put
Ah.
a lot of other things
Ah.
and sent it out, right? Fortunately, I was the first one to get shortlisted.
Oh, very nice.
Right? And this was not, I'm not talking about an Indian company.
Ah.
I'm talking about a Dubai-based company.
Yeah.
And it's a big firm.
Yeah.
And yeah, the standing out of
Matters
this
a lot.
Matters
And
a lot.
I think the one thing that I was coming down to at that point is it is very important for the receiver to also have that kind of open
Correct.
mind. that the receiver is also not waiting for a document.
Correct.
He is also open to ideas.
Right.
So that is needed both on the sender side and the receiver side as well.
I think it's the education also. It is more than sometimes. See, we speak to a lot of customers, right? And we tell customers that, hey, we are not a typical way of doing things. We try to think different in throughout our process. Yes, we do have processes. We do have do some things to make your life easier because you have that background.
Yeah.
But there are some places we put our touch.
Yeah.
So I think Partha, who's
Yeah.
ex CEO of Mindtree, right? He spoke about a soft differentiator,
Yeah.
and that actually has a it's from a word sense it's maybe very small,
Correct.
but if
It
you
has
look
a
at it in real sense,
huge impact. Yeah.
huge impact on whatever we do. Like a soft, there are two shops next to each other. How can you be a bit different?
Correct.
How can you? It may be customer experience.
Correct.
It can be something that could
Just giving a
lighten.
thank you card once.
Yeah, yeah.
So even a small effort has a big impact, but we don't realize it until
Correct.
it has happened, and that's a challenge.
I think the one of the time during my initial days of working in the first 2 years of Mulya is that I actually removed a lot of things in my resume
Okay.
that are very typical. Now, I can write test cases. I
Yeah.
can deliver. I know SDLC.
Yeah.
I know this. I know that.
Yeah.
I removed all of that.
Uh,
I mentioned these are my top 10 tools I am really good at.
uh,
These are the top 5 tools I may be okayish.
yeah.
And being transparent about it.
Yeah.
Right? And that's something changed the way I perceive and also communicate things.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's a great takeaway for our viewers. If you're a software tester in the space, you should definitely try out a mind map resume. It could have your photo at the center, then my skill sets, professional work, domains worked in, tools that I know, programming languages, and along with that, you can mention your whether they are 3 out of 5 or 2 out of 5, whatever you want to
Yeah.
mention, whatever kind of skill set you have. And I think because as a hiring manager, I know that I have about 6-7 recruiters working with me, and we look at hundreds of resumes.
Correct.
We do over 1,000 interviews a month. So actually, the time that a recruiter takes in looking at a resume is really small, really limited.
Yeah.
It's not possible for the recruiter to look at
No,
each
even
thing.
a small different when you open double click on a PDF and look at it, if
opens
there's something different.
correct. Now, instead of a resume, if it opens in a mind map, it's a great
Yeah, it's a
thing.
great thing.
Because now it's more visible.
Correct.
Otherwise, it's paragraphs after paragraphs after paragraphs.
Yeah.
But so that's a great takeaway. If you're a software tester, you should definitely try out a video resume and a X mind map. So great to have that conversation with you. We'll continue talking about it after a quick break. And I would love to know more about the specifics of the security audits that your teams are doing.
Sure. We'll take a break.
Great. Thank you all. We'll come back after break. Thank you.